Hello techies, welcome to UiPath tutorials. In this session, we are going to learn about database activities. This session, I'm going to divide into two parts. In part 1, we will see how to install UiPath database activities package. And after that, we will see how to install Microsoft SQL Server Management 2012, which already I have created a video on that. I will provide that video in the description. And also we can see how to connect and open SQL Server 2012. Okay, it's not by using UiPath, just I will show you how directly we can go ahead and we can open SQL Server 2012 for the reference purpose. And also we will see the steps to follow while working with the database activity. What are the steps that we required, to keep in mind when you are going to work with the database activities. Along with that, we will check out the database activities and the properties. One is we are having connect, disconnect, execute non-query, execute query activities that we are going to look at in part 1. Along with that, we can see there are a lot of use cases which we have, that how to insert the data into the database table by using execute non-query with simple insert query. And after that, we can see same insert data into the tables by using non-query with the parameters. Nothing but if we are having parameters, how can we go ahead and pass, or else by using stored procedure, we can see that. In the same way, we can see how to fetch the data from the database table by using execute query. And after that, we can see with the execute query itself with the parameters and the stored proc, how can we go ahead and fetch the data by using UiPath Studio. That is entirely, this one is very big session. Please bear with me. In the part 2, we can see the remaining database activities and their properties. That is one, how to insert the data by using insert activity in UiPath in a bulk way. And after that, we will see start transaction activity in UiPath. These two activities that we will see in the part 2. Okay. Now, first of all, we'll see how to install UiPath database activities package. Let me switch to UiPath Studio. Now, if you see, when I'm going to search the activities with the name of any activity like connect or anything, you don't find the activity. These are all the database activities. Now, where we can get that database activities? Under app integration, you will find the database activities. As of now, I have not installed that UiPath database activities on my UiPath Studio. Now, how can I go ahead and install or manage that package? Now, you will find the manage package. Click on that. Now, go to all packages. And over here in the search, give it as UiPath.Database. You can see over here UiPath.Database.Activities. Select that. You can see over here the version 1.3.7369. This is the latest version, and the runtime you can see strict. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to install this on my project or UiPath Studio. Let me click on install. And now you can see the package has been installed. Let me go ahead, let me save it. Now, if you observe under app integration, you can see the database. Let me expand this. Now you can see all the activities like connect, disconnect, execute non-query, execute query, insert, start transaction activities. These activities will be available under database, right? Now, as the first one, we have seen how to install UiPath database activities package in our UiPath Studio. Now, how can we go ahead and install it? This is very big session, so that I will provide this URL in the description. If you want to go through that, please go through that, how to install SQL Server Management Studio 2012. Now, I have already installed this SQL Server in my local. Now, how can I go ahead and open this SQL Server 2012? Go to Windows, search for SQL Server 2012. You can see SQL Server Management Studio. Click on Open. Now, if you see over here, The server type is database engine. Server name, this one. Just remember this one over here, the server name over here. You can give it on behalf of your desktop. You can give local host also like this, because of we are working on local system, right? And even you can give the dot. And the authentication, you can see Windows authentication or SQL authentication. So please do remember these two things also. While you are going to be working with the connection string, you are going to use these authentications to log in to connect to the SQL server. Okay. Now I'm going to click on connect. If you expand the databases, I have already created a database with the name of company. Under that, I have created a table with the name of employee details. Let me go ahead, let me show you the design over here. If you see the table design, I'm having employee name with the data type varchar50, location varchar50, date of joining, I have given data type as date, and the salary is int. Okay, this is the table which I'm going to use as part of this session to work with the database activities. Okay, now we have seen how to open SQL Server 2012, and also we have seen the database company and the table employee details, and we have seen the design, what are the data types we have given, what are the columns we have given it. If you want to know more about the SQL Server, I will provide you in the description about the entire entire sessions I'm having about the SQL Server, which has been created by me. You can follow that. You can get a better idea how to create a table, how to create a database, okay, and how to give these data types and all these things. Now we have seen how to open SQL Server 2012. Now, before going to work with the how to connect, let me give you some steps to follow while working with the database activities. Now, we'll talk about the steps to follow while we are going to use the database activities. Now, first thing is that whenever you are going to connect from UiPath to SQL Server, there is a connection required. How can you connect from the UI perspective to the database? By using connect activity. This is the first one. And once the connection is opened by using the connect activity, at the end of all transactions or end of the whatever work you are going to do, at the end of the thing, you have to disconnect between UiPath to SQL Server. That is, one is by using connect, another one to disconnect. I'm going to use disconnect activity because of we don't want to connect continuously with the database. Okay, in between you can do whatever the transactions or whatever the activity is required. Now you can see there are the activities that we have: execute non-query. Execute non-query is nothing but whenever you are working with DML operations like insert, update, delete. These are the data manipulation language queries that you are going to use to insert the data, to delete the data, or to update the data at the database side. These are all called DML language. What will happen if you're going to insert or delete or update the data? What will happen? It won't return anything as an output. So in that case, you are going to use execute non-query. Nothing but non-query is nothing but you don't return anything when you have executed some query. But here, if you see, I'm going to use execute query. So execute query, when I'm going to use stored procs at that time, I can use execute query, but in return, if I'm going to expect something like that, if I'm going to use select query, select star from employees. So what will happen if I want to get all the employee details which has been there in the employee table? At that time, I'm going to return the number of rows along with the data. Then as an output, we'll get as a data table. Okay, in that case, if something is returning from the database, in that case, I'm going to use execute query. Okay, here I have given store proc an example only. So, but here the store procs also we can use in the execute non-query also. But here, what is my mean is that in return, if I'm going to get something, in that case, I'm going to use execute non-query. And after that, insert activity. Insert activity is nothing but if you're having bulk data, if you want to insert at that time, you're going to use insert activity. Okay, and the start transaction. Transactions is a kind of big, if your transaction is going on committing the data into the database, and if some errors happen, you have to start some transaction. Okay, it's like a begin transaction, end transaction at the database side. It's a like rollback, commit, all these operations will be done by using start transaction. And finally, you are going to disconnect from UiPath to SQL server, that is database, that I can disconnect it by using disconnect activity. If you observe over here, I'm going to use SQL server as my database. So you can use any kind of, I'm using SQL server as my database. You can use OLEDB or Oracle or MySQL as any database, but the database maybe changes, but the connectivity and all these things will be the similar. Okay, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the database. If you don't know about the SQL server, don't worry. You can use MySQL or else you can use Oracle, whatever the database it is. Okay. Now we'll work with the activities, one by one activities. That is, one is connect, execute non-query, execute query, and disconnect as a part one. Now let me switch back to UiPath Studio. I have already created a project with the name of database activities, right? Now what I'm going to do, let me go to the project and you can see main.xaml. Let me open that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to work with connect activity under the database. Now let me drag and drop this connect activity. What exactly it will do? It will try to connect our UiPath to the database, right? So how can we go ahead and connect to the database by using UiPath Studio? Now click on configure connection, and you can see over here there is the wizard that we got. You can see new database connection. Connect wizard, click on that, and you can see there's the data sources over here. You can use MS Access as your database, or ODBC or SQL Server, SQL database file. You can use it as your data sources. And also if you have any other thing also, you can use it and you can go ahead and do that. Now, what is our database right now? We are going to use it, SQL Server. And you can see the providers over here. Let me expand that. You can see .NET Framework data provider for OLEDB and .NET Framework provider for the SQL Server. These are all for the remaining things, OLEDB connection, like Oracle and all these things that you will use it. But right now I'm having the connectivity with the SQL Server, right? So that I'm going to use .NET Framework data provide for SQL Server. This is my .NET provider. And always use this selection when I'm going to use this SQL Server. That's the reason I'm going to select this checkbox. Let me click on OK. And see over here, the data source, it is asking for the connection properties. You don't want to write anything, it will automatically get all the connectivities. Now if you see the server name, so whenever I have shown you to connect to this SQL server, right, this is my desktop-vk44521 SQL server 2012 is my server name, right? The same thing we will get it over here. Let me drop down this. You can see the desktop, the same thing which we have given, right? Let me select that. If you don't have an idea what is the server name and all these things, as I said, you can directly give local host over here, or else you can give dot. Dot is nothing but local host. Okay, now the log on to the server. We have used Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. What is the difference for these things? Whenever you are going to use Windows authentication, it won't ask username and the password. Okay, so if you are having any username and the password to connect to the database, then you will use SQL Server authentication. So that I am also having that SQL Server authentication as username is SA and the password is 123. And also I have configured the Windows authentication also, both mixed authentication I have used. If you want to use this one, you can go ahead and you can use it, or else if you want to use Windows authentication, you can go ahead and you can use it. Right now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use Windows authentication. And you can see connect to a database. Which database? As I told you, company is my database. From here also, you can see whenever you're clicking on the drop down, you can get all the databases which you have. Company, master, model, MSDB. These are all the default which we got it in while we are going to install SQL Server. And the company is the thing which I have created, right? I'm going to select that one. Now, how would I know that my UiPath is trying to connect to the SQL Server, the connectivity is succeeded or not? You can see over here the test connection. Click on that and you can get the pop-up test connection succeeded. Let's assume how can we go ahead and fail, make it fail. Now I am going to click on company one. Let me click on test connect. You can see over here this connection cannot be tested because the specified database does not exist or it is not available for the specified user. So you can easily find it out. Okay, this UiPath is trying to connect to the database that is SQL Server with the database name company. It is going to be succeeded or not. Okay, now I have given the company only. I just given previously to make you understand. I have given company one. Now let me click on OK. And over here you can see over here this is called connection string. So data source is equal to localhost 2012 initial catalog is company, that is nothing but database name. Integrated security, if you're going to use Windows authentication, you will get integrated security as true. If you are using SQL Server authentication, you will get it as username and the password, right? Now, if you don't want to go through this wizard and you can directly want to, connect to the database and all these things, that you can use the same thing over here. Directly also you can use. This is the connections thing that what will go. And over here, you can see I'm having how we are going to connecting it, that is by using system.data.sql client. These are all the namespaces which we are having as part of the .NET. Okay, these are the namespaces. Oracle, if you're going to connect Oracle, that you will use Oracle client, or OLDB, ODBC, these are all the things. Now, how I am going to connect to the SQL client, that is the reason I'm going to use system.data.sql client in the namespace. Okay, now let me select that and then I'm going to click on OK. Now we have seen how to connect to the SQL Server by using wizard, and also we have seen what is connection string, right? That is the URL that is the entire string that we got it, right? That is connection string. Now we'll see the properties. What are the properties are pending for this connect activity as part of database? One is display name, that we know this is the common property, and you can see the connection string over here. Let me expand that. Now you can see the same connection. Even you can provide over here directly by using data source is the local host or whatever the server name, and the initial catalog is database, and the integrated security true or false. Okay, that is nothing but if you are using username and password, you can get it by default over here. Okay, and the provider name, we are having system.data.sql client, that is also the namespace that what we have. And you can see the provider name we have seen and the output. So whatever the connectivity that we have to store somewhere in the database, because of if we use in other activities, right? How can we go ahead and find it out what is the connectivity that we have given, right? All this connectivity, connection string and provider name, and after that the connectivity, it will gives it over here in the database connection. Now let me go ahead, let me click on Control K to set a variable, and I'm going to give dbcon is my database connection, and then I'm going to click on enter. Now let me go to variables. If you see the variable, that is dbcon with the variable type database connection, and the scope is sequence. Okay, this is how we are going to be connecting from UiPath to SQL Server Management Studio by using connect activity under database. Now I will talk about the second one, that is disconnect. Once the connection has been completed, and I will tell you about these operations in over here once I have completed this disconnect activity. Okay, you can see over here when you mouse over, it will closes the connection to the database. Nothing but if you have connected from UiPath, I want to close the connection because of you can't keep the connection open all the time, right? That is the reason we are going to use disconnect activity. Let me drag and drop into the sequence, and after that we'll see the properties over here of the disconnect. we're having only one thing, that is database connection, that is the connection. So if you see in the connect that we have given DB connection, right? That is variable DB con, that the same connection I'm going to use it over here to disconnect. That is the reason we have used the variable over there to set it in the properties of the output of the connect activity. Okay, till now we have seen how to connect and disconnect SQL Server Management Studio by using UiPath activities, UiPath database activities. Now we will see the remaining things, that is use cases for execute non-query and the execute query. Now the main agenda starts over here to use the database activities. If you see in my use case that I'm having insert data into the tables by using simple execute non-query with insert query. Now let me switch to SQL Server Management Studio. When I open this table, I don't have any data like employee name, location, date of joining, salary, all my columns. How can I go ahead and insert the data into this table by using SQL Server? If you see over here, I have already taken some of the queries to make you understand very easily and faster. If you see insert into, this is the table, that is employee details, and the columns employee name, location, date of joining, salary, and the values I'm going to give it as Amir, and then I'm going to give it as Bangalore location, and date of joining is 2019 05/19 is the date, and the salary is 30,000. Okay, now if I go ahead and execute this, the data will be inserted into this table. How can we know? Let me refresh this. And now you can see the data over here, Amir, Bangalore, whatever the data we have given over here by using the insert query, that is the same data will be applied over here. Now, how can I go ahead and use this query to insert the data from UiPath Studio? Let me copy that. And then now over here, to insert the data, we are going to use all the DML operations like insert, update, and delete. I'm going to use execute non-query as my activity. Let me drag and drop this activity onto the panel. Now, if you see here, I'm having configure connection. Let me click on that. You can see existing database. What is the existing database connection that we have? We have used this dbcon, right? We will use the same thing over here. Just select that one. And you don't want to give any kind of configuration or connections over here because of we are using already existing database connection. Okay, but if you're not using this connection activity, you can go ahead and you can use it connection wizard over here, the same kind of thing over here, whatever we have seen, the same kind of thing that we can use it. But already we have used the connection over here, so that I don't want to use some other things over here. Okay, now I have used DB connection, and then I'm going to click on OK. And now you can see the edit query. I'm going to use this edit query over here, and then I'm going to use the same insert query which we have. Let me expand this. I'm going to give this in double quotes. Over here you can see I'm just going to give in double quotes the entire insert connection. Insert into employees, employee details table with the employee name and the column. These are all the columns and the values. I will change these values over here. I will just give the name as Basha, and I will give it location is Hyderabad. Okay, and salary I will make it as 40,000. Okay, and date of joining I will make it as 20. Just a small change over here, and then I'm going to click on OK. Now let me go ahead and I will show you the remaining properties what we have for the execute non-query. Execute non-query will be used for DML operation, that is insert, update, delete. So why I'm telling these many times? To make you understand very easily. You don't want to get confused about the execute non-query as well as the execute query. Now let me go to execute non-query and let me go to the properties, and you can see the common properties, this continue on error, we'll talk about that later. And the connection string, you can see over here, I'm already using the existing connection over here, so that I don't want to use this connection string again. If you want to use the new connection string, then as we have seen in the connect, you can use the same way over here also. And the provider names, these two are dependent and this is independent. If you are using existing connection, then no need of these two things. If you are using new connection, then please provide connection string as well as the provider name. And the parameters. The parameters is nothing but if you're going to use some kind of parameters at the time, I will go ahead and I will use it. And you can see the SQL input over here. This is the same query which we have used to insert the data, right? And then the command type, you can see the command type over here, text or stored procedure or table. These are all the command types which you are going to use. Now I'm going to use the command type as text. Okay, affected records. Okay, how many rows have been inserted while you are going to executing this query. That one I will go ahead and I will give it over here as an output. Now I don't want to take this as an output because I don't require how many number of rows are affected. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I will show one message box over here to make you understand the bot has been successfully executed or not. Now let me go to activities. I will type message box. Let me drag and drop after completion of the disconnect. Now I will say successfully implemented. Okay. And then I'm going to save the bot. Let me run the bot. Now if you see database activity execution started, and you can see the message box successfully implemented. Nothing but this record has been inserted successfully. Now let me click on OK. Now let me show you once again this table by refreshing it. Employee detail. Now select top 1000 records, and you can see the second one Hyderabad. Second one is employee name Basha, and the location is Hyderabad, and date of joining is 20 May 2019, and the salary 4,000, which we have given from the UiPath. Now we have seen how to insert the data into the database table, that is employee details table, by using execute non-query. Now, is there a way to execute with assigning? Yes, there it is. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to give input dialogues over here. Input dialog. Let me drag and drop. This is for the name. Okay, the label also I will give it as name, and the output I will store it in the output variable, that is in the result, that is control K. In the same way, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some more inputs for the 4 different columns, right? We are having employee name, location, date of joining, and the salary. For each and everything, I will create input dialogues over here. So I have created 4 dialog box. One is for the name purpose, another one for the location, another one for the date of joining, and finally we'll see the salary. And all the variables has been given over here. And I'm going to change the salary as integer, because of the salary will becomes as integer, right? That I'm going to take it this one. So now what I'm going to do, I'm over here in the edit query. I'm going to give it as a parameters. How can I go ahead and do that? You can see in this single quotes, I'm going to start with single quotes, double quotes, and then plus, and then I'm going to give double quotes again plus. Over here, what I'm going to give, what are the outputs that we got it over here, I'm going to give it over here with the output name. In the same way, I'm going to give the location also, that is output location, and the date of joining you can see over here. I will give same way double quotes plus plus double quotes that is nothing but output date of joining. Okay, and the finally salary, I will go ahead and I will give it as output in the double quotes I will give, and then double quotes over here you can see that is salary, output salary. Okay, now we have, this is the way how we are going to be using this parameters, but here it is not exactly parameters. I'm going to use one of the way to use the parameters. Now let me go ahead, let me click on OK. Now for the OP salary, I'm going to give it the variable as, the OP salary variable type is double. So that from integer to I have to convert it to double. I'm going to give this one conversion over here. So what is the conversion? I will just give it as convert to string. Okay. And then for here, what I have to give? OP salary. Okay. Now let me close this and then let me give plus sign over here in the double quotes. Okay, now let me click on OK. Now let me save the bot. Let me run the bot. So now over here, what we are going to do, we are going to give dynamically the values we are going to give from the UiPath by using input dialog box. And then we will see the data is inserting or not in the database that we'll check it out. Now let me go ahead, let me give the values over here. First value I will give it as Vishwa. I'm going to click on OK. Location I will give it as Delhi. Okay. Date of joining I will give it as 2019-0404. And final I will give the salary as 40,000. Okay. Now let me go ahead, let me click on OK. Now you can see the message box successfully implemented. Nothing but the data has been inserted successfully. Now let me click on OK. Now let me go to my database. Let me this select query, let me execute this select query. Now you can see in the third row, Vishwa, Delhi, and date of joining and the salary that has been inserted successfully. Till now, we have seen how to insert the data into the table by using insert query, that is by using execute non-query activity. Now we are going to insert the data into the table by using execute non-query with parameters as well as the store procedure. Now, how can we go ahead and do that? I have already created a store prog with the name of sp_emp insert in the SQL server. Okay, and normally we'll use execute sp_emp insert with the parameters. These are all the parameters. You can see over here the parameters is at the rate of employee name, at the rate of location, at the rate of date of joining, at the rate of salary. These are all the parameters which I have given over here for this store procedure. How can I go ahead and do that in the same way using UiPath? Let me switch to UiPath Studio. Now I'm using execute non-query, right? Let me go to the properties. Over here, you can see the command type is text. So when we are going to use command type text, one way that we are going to use it to execute the store procedure. First of all, we'll go for the these parameters. Let me select that. Over here, I'm going to give parameters that is the same as is over here. That is one name, employee name, and the direction you can see over here, direction in, out, in and out. In nothing but this is the input. Out is nothing but output parameter from the store procedure. Okay, and now you can see the string over here. The string is it for the employee name. What is the input for this? OP name. In the same way, I'm having location, that is also input parameter, and the value is output location. For the same way, at the date of joining, we are having date of joining, that is also input parameter, and the value is output date of joining. And finally, we are having at the rate of salary, that is input, and the type is integer, and the value is that is output salary, right? I'm going to give at the rate of salary as double. Okay, over here the output value. Let me go ahead, let me click on OK. But if you see over here, the command type is text. How can we go ahead and we will give this SQL query? Let me select on edit query. Let me expand this. Over here, what we'll give, the way which we have given over here, we'll do in the same way. Okay, so the command will give it in a double quotes, and the value you can see over here, execute sp_emp insert is the store procedure name at the rate of values. We don't want to assign any values because it's already assigned. we will give in a such a way. These are the values. I will show you. We will give the value over here, execute sp underscore insert. These are all the parameter values which we have given, right? Now let me click on OK. Now you can see that the property, don't forget that the property we have given in the text format, so that it will be considered entire thing as a text format. Now let me execute the bot. Now I will give the name over here as test. Okay, and then I will give some other location as HYD and date of joining 2020-04-04, and salary I will give it as 40,000, and then I'm going to click on OK. Now you can see the successfully implemented. Now let me go to database and let me execute this, and you can see at the sixth row, test Hyderabad so and so value has been successfully inserted. This is the reason you can see over here that I have given in the property of execute non-query, I have given as text. But over here, if you see, this is the store procedure. How can I go ahead and make it the changes? If I'm going to command type, I'm going to use it as store procedure, and I'm going to edit this query over here so that you don't want to give entire things, because of you have already having the parameters in place. If you see over here, the parameters, all the parameters have been assigned in place, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this entire thing. I'm just keeping that stored procedure name only. Okay, now let me click on OK. Now let me run the bot once again. Now if you see bot execution started, now I'm going to give some other values like CMD, just for an example. Okay, location Bangalore, date of joining, some values I will give it, and salary I will make it as 60,000 or 6,000. Now you can see that it has been successfully implemented. Now let me go ahead. Now let me refresh the data. You can see the seventh row has been inserted successfully. This is how we are going to be using execute non-query with the different properties. That is one with the parameters, another one with the command type that we have seen with the text and the store procedure. And also you can see the parameters. We have given different parameters like in and out direction with the in direction that we have seen. This is how we are going to use execute non-query for all the DML operations like insert, update, and delete. Now I hope you understand how to use execute non-query, right? Now we'll talk about the execute query. There are the different use cases that we have. So what is the use of execute query? Execute query executes a query on a database and returns a value in the data table. Whatever the values that you are going to get it, we are going to be getting as an output. Now let me show you that. So for that also I'm having two queries. If you see, I'm having select star from employee. If you execute this, what are all the values that whatever the in the employee detail table that I'm having, all the values are coming as an output. This is the data table which we will get it at the UiPath. Okay, for that I have created a stored proc. I am going to pass the employee name as an as a parameter, and then I will check it out what are the values that we are having with the employee ID. You can see over here with the employee name Basha that I'm having one row. How can I go ahead and execute this by using UiPath Studio? There we are having one more activity, that is execute query. Let me drag and drop execute query onto the panel. Now first of all, we'll go for the configuration connection. This is same as we are having for the execute non-query also. Okay, we are going to give the connection, DB connection. Now I will click on OK. Now we'll see the properties over here. In the properties, that existing connection we have given on the right, first of all, we'll see without parameters. Okay, so without parameters, how can I go ahead and do that? I'm just going to use select star from employee where employee name equal to Basha. Okay, that I will give directly over here in this execute query, and the command type is text. Now let me go ahead, let me edit this query. In the double quotes, I'm going to give the value, entire value. Over here as in the single quotes, I'm going to give it as Basha. Okay, you will see whatever the employee name that we have with the Basha, I need to get all the values as an return by checking the employee details table. Okay, now the main important property in the execute query is the output, where I have to store the output. I'm going to store the output in the data table by clicking on Control K. I'm going to set a variable output employee details. I'm going to give it the way, and then I'm going to click on enter. You can see over here a new variable has been created with the output employee details with the data type data table. Now I want to write this data somewhere, right? How can I go ahead and write it? By using Excel application scope. Whatever the data we have it in the Excel application scope, in the data table, I'm going to write the data by using Excel application scope. And then I'm going to give somewhere, right? I will give in the main project folder itself. I'm going to give it the name as, I will give it the value directly over here in the Excel format. And then once if the file is not exist, what we will do, it will create a new file, correct? Now, once the file is there that I want to write the data, how can I go ahead and write it? By using write range activity. Right now, let me drag and drop this write range activity over here. And then in the sheet one, from the A1 cell that I'm going to use under the data table, I am having it output employee detail as an output. Now let me go ahead, let me save it. Now let me run the bot. This is the hard-coded values that which we are going to using. Okay, if you see in the select query, I have hard-coded the values. Before running the bot, I don't need all these input dialogues because of I don't want to insert any kind of data. So that what I will do, I will disable all these things. Okay. Now all the input dialogues has been commented out. Now let me run the bot. Now if you see database activities execution started. Now if you observe, Excel also has been started writing over here in the employee details, and successfully it has been completed. Now let me go to the project. Let me refresh this. Over here you don't find any employee details. Right now you can see that, right? Let me open that. Now if you see, I'm having Basha employee and the date of joining and all these things. Why don't you have the header? Because of you have not used, we have not used write range property in the property, add headers, we have to use it. Okay, now no worries. I will show you that one also in the same way. Now, till now we have seen how to fetch the data by using hard coding values. Now how can I do the same way by using the stored proc, right? Now let me go ahead, let me make a change over here in the now let me go ahead, let me make the changes in the execute non-query, and then I'm going to give it as a text over here. What is the text command type? I will give it as a store procedure, and then I'm going to make the changes in the over here as we have done for the execute non-query itself, right? So I'm going to give it the express editor. What is the SQL? I'm going to give the store procedure name. Let me click on OK. Now for the parameters, I'm going to give employee name over here as a parameter at the rate of employee emp name. Okay. And what is the value? I will give it as output name over here. And for that, where is the input? I will go ahead and I will give this commented out one. I will give it as an input value. I'm going to enable it. You can see the name over here. Now, whatever the value we are going to give it over here in the input dialog, that has to be checked out over here in this execute query. And then in return, it will be write the data in the employee details.excel file, right? By using write range activity. Now let me go ahead, let me run the bot. Now you can see bot execution started and it is asking for the inputs, right? Input of the value which I want to search. I'm just going to give it as Amir over here, okay? AMWR, let me click on OK. Now you can see employee details Excel has been created and then successfully implemented. Now let me go to employee details once again. Let me open it. Now you can see with the employee name Amir that we got even the headers because of we have given add headers, right? And the detail has been fetched out by using the store procedure, and then we have written in Excel. Okay, this is how we are going to use execute query to fetch the data and to write the data into the Excel. I hope you understand how to use execute non-query with simple hard-coded values, that is direct insert query. And also we have seen how to use execute non-query with parameters and store procedures. And also we have seen how to execute query activity with select query as well as the store procedure. Along with that, we have seen how to use connect and disconnect activities as part of this session. In the next session, I will explain you how to use database activities, that is insert activity and start transaction activity, as part of part 2. Thank you for watching UiPath tutorials. If you have any queries related to this concept, please post them in the comment section. I will see you in the next session. Till then, bye bye. Have a nice day.